there are two ways home down one long road. One clear path to two conclusions, sings Winnie. Life is hard enough, but to live it forever is a question of morals and true desire. The thought of living forever is best explored in Natalie Babbitt's famed novel Tuck Everlasting, which depicts the story of a family that has discovered a spring with water that gives one the power to live forever, if drinking. The topics of the value of life, what it means to live, and what it means to love are explored through the lens of a young girl, Winnie Foster. The rich storytelling had cemented it as a classic novel for all, but it wasn't until a director with a knack for kitschy hits got his hands on the novel that it finally took shape into a musical. Its impact may be small, but this production explored the delicate translation of book to stage and created gorgeous art. Let's take a look behind the playbill at my very first Broadway show, Tuck Everlasting. Natalie Babbitt got her start in illustrating, collaborating with her husband on children's books. Her husband Samuel would write the book and Natalie would illustrate it. Their books were a hit with the publishing company. The editor convinced her to stay on and keep trying. Her first venture, Nenoch Rise, won the Newbery Honor for children's book writing. Her next attempt would be in the form of a chapter book, but this time without a clear beginning and end, symbolically. This novel would be Tuck Everlasting, and it would cement itself among the ranks of best chapter books and children's novels ever written. With 2 movie adaptations under her belt, Babbitt had no intention of bringing the show to the stage. That was until a lyricist proposed something that changed that. It was spring 2010, and Broadway was teeming with excitement for shows such as Memphis, the revival of La Cage aux Folles, and American Idiot. Off-Broadway, playwright Horizon is mounting their new production of The Burnt Park Boys, conceived by composer-lyricist team Chris Miller and Nathan Tyson, and starring future Broadway star Noah Galvin. The story, which took place in a coal mining town in 1962 West Virginia, featured a strong folk score by the pair and a unique story, which the New York Times called a warm-spirited and family-friendly but dramatically static new show. Little did they know, this would be the perfect springboard onto Broadway. Tyson had been thinking of new concepts and remembered his favorite children's book, which just happened to be Tuck Everlasting. On the other side of New York, Casey Nicholaw was about to begin rehearsals for his next project, Elf the Musical. Nicholaw had already established himself as the go-to director for musical comedies, having directed such acclaimed shows as The Drowsy Chaperone and Book of Mormon, which won the Tony for Best Musical and is still running to date. Nicholaw is also a choreographer, so when the pair crossed paths with him, it was destiny that they'd conceive Tuck Everlasting as a stage musical. Once they pitched it to Babbitt and assured her the heart of the story would remain, the deal was done. Tuck Everlasting was officially a Broadway-bound musical. In January 2013, the casting had been set for the regional premiere in Boston at the Colonial Theater. Andrew Keenan-Bolger of Newsies fame would be Jesse Tuck, while Sadie Sink, recently seen in the 2012 revival of Annie, would take the reins as Winnie. Tony nominee and legend Carolee Carmello would play Winnie's mother, and original Beauty and the Beast actor Terrence Mann would star as antagonist Man in the Yellow Suit. The cast and crew were eager to get started, and then, boom, the show had been postponed. Always billed as a pre-Broadway tryout, it's no secret that this show is planning a regional premiere in Boston before moving to Broadway. The only problem with their plan was there weren't any available theaters that could fit their needs. I did some research, and at the time their run in Boston would have ended, only the St. James Theater was open, and it's unknown if Bullets Over Broadway had their early 2014 premiere already slotted, which would cut off an open-ended run for Tuck. They were stuck and decided to wait. 2 years went by, and by the end of 2014, they'd finally gained enough confidence to move forward with a regional premiere, this time in Atlanta at the Alliance Theater, ahead of a Broadway transfer. The Atlanta production had a few changes, but one noticeable was the actress of Sadie Sink missing. Winnie's character is young, and Sadie had aged from 11 to 13, and was eventually replaced by newcomer Sarah Charles Lewis. Casey Nicholaw had begun to add his signature flair and choreographed moves to the show, such as demonstrating Winnie aging in the end through a ballet, as Miller and Tyson wrote and edited their score, featuring songs such as Good Girl Winnie Foster and Everlasting. The show's technical elements were notable as well, with large tree branches wrapping the stage and lowering onto stage as if growing. The costumes were traditional, with a flair of personality for the rebellious characters like Winnie. The show made its premiere in Atlanta on January 21st, 2015 to rave reviews, with many praising Nicholaw's choreography and the performances of the leads. The New York Times claimed, "Indeed, the most dazzling passage is probably the culminating ballet, effortlessly conveying the circle of life, as it were, without benefit of spectacular puppetry and a familiar pop song. It had the woman next to me repeatedly wiping away tears, and I understood how she felt." The show was officially a hit and ran through the end of February before the time came to move to the Great White Way. Tuck Everlasting officially opened on Broadway on April 26, 2016 at the Broadhurst Theater. I was lucky enough to see it during previews and can attest to a gorgeous production with great performances. The critics, however, felt divided. The New York Times continued their praises on the New York premiere, calling it a warm-spirited and piecingly touching musical that has nothing flashy or splashy about it, while Deadline did praise the ballet as most inspired, but said unlike the unlucky Tucks, this material aged out long ago and far away. Not only fighting lukewarm reviews, the show is debuting the same season as such juggernauts as Hamilton and Waitress. The show opened to below average ticket sales, opening at just over $300,000 a week, much less than what the show needed to capitalize. For reference, during the same period, Hamilton was grossing around $1.7 million a week, and Waitress was nearing the $1 million mark a week. Still, mixed reviews don't always sink shows, and the cast and crew were still hopeful that some positive press on Tony Nomination Day might help the show stay afloat. Tony Nomination Day came, and Hamilton dominated everything. It was a cultural phenomenon, and opening Tuck during the same season was always an uphill battle in a crowded season. Tuck Everlasting walked away with just one Tony nomination for Greg Barnes' costume design. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, and after playing another month into May, the producers announced a closing date just 5 days before it, with it set to close on May 29th, after just 28 previews and 39 performances. The show enjoyed a slight box office boost before it closed, and the infinite lifetime of the Tucks saw an abrupt end. Natalie Babbitt was able to see the show and spoke to the audience after the performance, shortly before her passing in 2016. Tuck Everlasting may have closed on Broadway, but has now inserted itself into many regional and community theaters across the United States, with songs from its score finding their way into many young performers' audition books. Behind this playbill, the true lesson is there is no such thing as immortality, and nowhere is this truer than in the business of Broadway. For now, Everlasting exists only in our minds and our hearts. No, that's cheesy. How about nothing's everlasting? Yeah, that should sum it up pretty well. If you like this content, be sure to hit subscribe so I can continue to explore theater with you. Thanks for watching.